Why did we stop living in circles? Thousands of years ago, before cities, before writing, before anyone had ever drawn a straight line on purpose, humans built in circles. Not squares, not rectangles, circles. From the earliest huts in Africa to the round tents of nomadic tribes in Central Asia, to some of the very first permanent settlements ever discovered on Earth, the shape of home was almost always round. And then, somewhere along the way, we stopped. We started building boxes, square rooms, square windows, square buildings stacked on top of each other, filling entire cities with straight lines and 90-degree angles. So here's the question that should keep you up at night. If the circle came first, why did it disappear? And why, at the very same time, did some of the most awe-inspiring structures ever built by human hands, structures still standing after 4,500 years, take the shape not of a circle, not of a square, but of a pyramid? Let's follow this thread all the way down, the age of circles. To understand why we abandoned the circle, we first have to understand why we chose it in the first place. Picture the earliest builders on Earth. No steel, no cut lumber, no bricks. Just branches, reeds, animal hide, mud, and stone gathered by hand. With materials like that, a circle isn't just easier to build. It's almost the only shape that makes sense. A round wall made of bent branches or stacked stone distributes force evenly. There are no weak corners for wind or weight to attack. A storm that would tear a flimsy square structure apart simply flows around a circle. And there's something even more elegant hiding in the math. For the exact same amount of building material, a circular shape encloses more usable space inside than almost any other shape you could draw. Less material, more room, more warmth trapped inside during freezing nights. This is why, at sites like Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, one of the oldest known human-built structures on the planet, predating even the pyramids by thousands of years, archaeologists found not squares, but rings, circular enclosures built by people who had not yet invented farming, writing, or the wheel. The nomadic yurts of Central Asia, the round huts of early farming villages, the circular reed houses of ancient marsh dwellers, even the earliest longhouses in parts of the world would often begin as curved, oval frames before straight walls ever entered the picture. Across continents, across cultures who never met each other, humans kept arriving at the same shape. The circle wasn't a cultural preference, it was a survival strategy, quietly discovered again and again in nearly every corner of the ancient world. So what changed? The shift to the square. The turning point wasn't a single invention. It was a slow, quiet revolution. And it had a name: settlement. For most of human history, people moved. They followed animals, followed seasons, followed food. A circular hut that could be built in a day and abandoned the next was perfect for a life in motion. But then agriculture happened. People began staying in one place, for years, for generations. And once you stop moving, everything about how you build starts to change. Here's the problem with circles. You cannot pack them together efficiently. Picture trying to arrange circular rooms side by side. No matter how you arrange them, gaps of wasted, unusable space form between them. But squares and rectangles? They lock together perfectly. Wall to wall, no wasted space, no gaps. As villages grew into towns and towns grew into the first cities, this mattered more and more. Land was valuable. Families needed multiple rooms. for sleeping, for storage, for animals, and the only shape that let you build room after room, wall after shared wall, floor after floor, was the square. At the same time, building materials were evolving. Cut stone, fired brick, sawn timber. These materials are naturally straight-edged, and it takes far more skill and effort to bend or curve them than to simply stack them into a straight wall and a right angle. There's something else too. Something rarely mentioned. Straight walls made it possible to measure, plan, and repeat. Once builders could draw a square on the ground before laying a single stone, architecture stopped being something improvised by hand and started being something designed. That a single shift, from building by feel to building by plan, is part of what allowed cities to grow larger and denser than anyone before had thought possible. So the shift from circle to square wasn't really about beauty or belief or symbolism. It was about density, efficiency, and the demands of a species that had finally decided to stay put. The circle belonged to a wandering world. The square belonged to a world that had started building empires. The pyramid problem. But here's where the mystery deepens. If straight lines and right angles were simply the practical evolution of architecture, why did ancient civilizations, the Egyptians, and independently, thousands of miles away, the Mesoamerican cultures of Mexico and Central America, choose neither the circle nor the simple square? They chose the pyramid, a shape that takes enormous effort to build, a shape that requires moving and stacking millions of tons of stone, each block smaller than the one beneath it, rising toward a single point in the sky. Why? The honest answer strips away some of the mystery, but reveals something arguably more impressive. The pyramid isn't a religious accident. It's one of the most brilliant engineering solutions in human history. Stack stone blocks straight up into a tower, and eventually gravity wins. The tower collapses under its own weight, but widen the base and taper the shape as it rises, distributing an enormous amount of weight downward and outward instead of relying on thin vertical walls. And suddenly, the structure can rise higher and last longer than almost anything else humans could build with the tools of the time. The pyramid shape is, in essence, the most stable way to stack a mountain of stone without it falling down. And yet, the civilizations who built them didn't just see engineering. They saw meaning. The rising point of the pyramid, reaching from the earth toward the sun and the stars, became sacred, a stairway for pharaohs to ascend to the afterlife, a mountain built by human hands to touch the divine. What makes this even stranger is that two civilizations, separated by an entire ocean, with no contact and no shared history, arrived at almost the same solution, as if the shape itself was simply waiting to be discovered by anyone determined enough to build something that could outlast them. So the pyramid sits at a strange crossroads in history, a shape born from pure physics, but wrapped entirely in myth. So why do we live in boxes today? Which brings us back to your own house, your own apartment, the room you might be sitting in right now. We don't live in circles because circles don't stack efficiently in crowded cities. We don't live in pyramids because, frankly, nobody needs to stack 30 stories of stone just to sleep at night. We live in boxes because boxes are the most efficient shape ever discovered for combining materials, space, and density at scale. Every straight wall in your home is the descendant of a 5,000-year-old decision made when humans first decided to stop wandering and start building cities. And yet, the circle never fully disappeared. Domes, silos, stadiums, Even today, the shape chosen by architects experimenting with 3D printed homes designed to survive earthquakes and storms with the same natural strength that first drew humans to build in circles. Tens of thousands of years ago. Which raises one final question. A question worth sitting with after this video ends. As new technology makes curved, printed, organic structures easier to build than ever before, are we approaching a future where humanity finally returns to the shape it started with? Where the circle, the very first shape we ever called home, becomes the shape of the future too?